I'm here with Paul Treyvaud. He is the co-owner, I believe, with your brother Paul, of Trevaud's restaurant in Killarney. He's one of Ireland's best-known chefs. He's produced two shows on Amazon, along with a fantastic and practical YouTube channel, no nonsense cooking channel, which I personally appreciate. And of course, he's a well-known political commentator. He's done all the rounds, RTE and all the national media. Paul, thanks for coming on. It's lovely to chat to you.
Thank you very much, John. It's a great introduction. I hope I live up to it now.
Well, actually, it's interesting, Paul, because I noticed that when you are on the radio these days, in particular, a lot, you're under pressure. You're having to speak on behalf of the entire hospitality industry. So if it's all right with you, I'd like to allow you time to breathe and think. And maybe we could just actually start with your background and how you got into the business. Your father was actually a master chef, was he not?
Yeah, an original master chef. And this is not after winning a 2-week TV show. This is when you had to go through the old-fashioned rounds of doing it. So Dad is Swiss, and he did his apprenticeship over in Switzerland. And over there you pretty much went to college 1 day a week. You worked your 5 days a week. And on your day off, you weren't asked. You were expected to go down and work in the local butcher and learn that trade for free. And once you had mastered that, then you went down to the local fish farm and you learned how to fillet all your fish and do everything for free. So you were always expected to be pretty much 7 days a week at it. So that would have a huge amount of knowledge, classically trained, kind of in the French style, Swiss French style of cooking, and was the executive head chef of some of the top hotels, restaurants, worked in some of the most incredible places, and cooked for some of the most unbelievable people. To name drop but a few: Muhammad Ali, Princess Grace, Frank Sinatra, and would you believe it, Elvis Presley. So when you've got a father like that, who lives, breathes hospitality and cooking.
Wow.
As much as my mother tried to stop me from going into it, the worst thing a parent can ever tell a kid is don't do this, because they obviously go headfirst into it. So yeah, I followed suit. And I remember as a kid, 2, 3, 4 years of age, sitting on the stool beside Dad in the kitchen and just watching him, making simple sauces, watching him do everything. And I just went, geez, that's just me. I love it. And so
wow,
that's what got me going into the industry from the first place.
So he had his restaurants in Ireland, so
Well, so Dad worked in hotels. Never had his own actual personal restaurant, but he was in Jury's. He finished up in Jury's Balls Bridge when it was Jury's Balls Bridge.
When it was Jury's, right?
The top 5-star hotel in the country, and Dad was the executive head chef over such a team. Wow. I remember going in there one day, and Dad's office was in the middle of the kitchen, and they didn't get in steaks. They got in cows. They didn't get in fillets of fish. They got in bags of fish. So they had their own little butcher's area, their own fishmonger's area. Everything was on real old school, And Dad's office was kind of above everybody else. And when he was, kind of standing in it, you could just see everybody, just the respect he got from them was insane. And I think that was part of the adrenaline rush for me as well, to say, my God, you can be so good at something that you can actually get the respect of so many people in this way. And of course, I got my talking skills from my mother. She'd love to hear that. So when Dad took early retirement, they actually, after about 6 months, which is what normally happens to people in this industry, you just get bored very quickly. So he opened up their own deli, Simply Delicious, now in Foxrock Avenue, which is actually, and I worked there on and off through college and all that kind of stuff. But my sister has taken that over now. So it's probably, one of the most longest standing delis up in Dublin. They're about, I suppose, between my parents and my sister, it's not far off 40 years in existence. And so we're all in the game. Every one of us is in the game in the family.
But it's a tough game, Paul.
It's a tough game, and it's getting tougher because it used to be rewarding. And I mean both financially and mentally. And now both of those rewards seem to be disappearing very, very quickly.
When you talk about your dad there, and I love how you talk about him with such pride, I'm also extremely proud of my own father. Love to hear that. Is that it sounds terribly exciting and romantic, but it does strike me that that sounds almost like a golden age somehow. Before we talk about just how things are now, how did you, what's your formal background? So it's in the blood, obviously. You grew up watching your dad. Then you obviously went off to catering college or something like that.
Yeah, so I did hotel management and business studies actually in college. And I worked abroad in Switzerland for 3 or 4 summers. Came back to Ireland. And when I was in college, I went abroad. And I loved it, absolutely. Switzerland's just such a beautiful, beautiful country. Incredibly expensive, but when you work there, it's all relative. But it's just stunning, and the Swiss people are amazing. And then came back to Ireland, and I remember my first year in college, finishing exams, and of course we went out celebrating. And Dad comes in, and I'm kind of, let's just say I had maybe 1 or 2 beers too many on my end. And Dad turns around to me and he goes, "What's the plans for the summer?" And I said, "Gee, Dad, I have no idea." I said, "Oh, we'll go find." This is going back like a long time ago, 30 odd years ago. I said, "Oh, don't worry, I'll get up Monday and I'll find something." And he says, "Well, whatever you're doing, have it done by Monday because you're going to Kenmare." And my answer was Ken where? I just never heard of Kenmare before in my life. I was one of those dubs that, like the world existed inside Dublin and nothing else.
Right.
And so Dad had a friend who had a chain of hotels. It's the Lee Hotels. They had the Kenmare Bay Hotel, the Sligo Park Hotel, and the Mespil Hotel. So I came down for my first summer in college and worked in the Kenmare Bay Hotel. And a long story short, it's where I met my future wife when I came down. So not all was lost when I came down here. And so then I went and I worked in a couple of other different places. And when I finished college, I went and worked in the Mespil Hotel and worked for the greatest general manager in the hotel industry that I've ever come across, because if he saw somebody who was going to succeed, he gave them all the tools to succeed. So Mark Pullen came in, the general manager of the Mespil, and he said to me after a week, he goes, "What do you want to do? Do you want to pull pints and carry plates, or do you want to be, general manager of a hotel?" And I always had this thing in the back of my head of being a chef, just from Dad. I always loved cooking, and I've worked in so many different restaurants in the kitchens as well. And I said, "Yeah, I want to be a general manager. I want to climb the ladder." And he goes, "Right." He says, "So you're going to do 3 months in accounts and 3 months in reception. So you see the money coming in and you see the money going out." And that's exactly what I did. And after that, I got promoted through the management side of things.
Wow.
And again, I was so lucky because I trained under a phenomenal accountant in the hotel, which has given me the skills to run my own business. But what happened one day was we had to let the head chef go one particular time. I was there for about 4.5 years. We had to let the head chef go. It just wasn't working out. And he started laughing at us. And I just kind of go, "That's a very strange reaction to somebody." And so he buggered off out of the office. And the 2 next in charge, the 2 senior sous chefs come run up. This is a big operation now. We're doing like 300 for breakfast. We're doing 250 for lunch and about another 300 for dinner. Big operation. And the 2 guys come up and they go, we're supposed to be going skiing together in 2 weeks' time with our partners. And like, "What the hell? How are we going to go now? The head chef's gone." I just turned around to the GM and I said, "Well, the only thing we can do is I'll go into the kitchen." So I moved into the hotel for the best part of 12 days. And I said to the guys, all the management team, here's how this works. Don't come near me because I'm about to turn into a different animal when I go into the kitchen. And so I did it all. There was myself, 2 commies, a kitchen porter, and a junior commie as well. And we ran the kitchen. I'll never forget it. And I loved every single second of it. Every single second of it. I lived, I breathed, I stayed the night in the hotel. And after it, I turned around and I went, "Not for me. That is not for me to be in the kitchen."
Really?
And I always, even when I was going through college, I was going, "But I want to be a chef. I want to be a chef." And I went, so I love cooking. I think I'm pretty good at what I'm doing. But you just get to see and do a hell of a lot more on the front side of things. What I have is this, if anytime I was going through hotels, if a chef turned around and tried to challenge me, the greatest thing I could turn around and go, "Yeah, no problems. Like, if you're not happy, belt away. I'll jump in and cover it." And it happened a few times where I just have to jump in the hotel and cover it night service. And it happens to this day in the restaurant when I jump in and help out. But because of the TV stuff, a lot more and more people were saying, "Where is he? Where is he? Where is he?" So, well, you can't be outside the front talking to people and inside cooking at the same time. So now I'm kind of more outside the front. I love doing my cooking at home, love doing my dinner parties, love having guests over, family over. And that's where I do all my cooking there.
Where do you find most stressful, out front or back there as the man with all the weight on his shoulder to get the food out?
I think, do you know what? This will sound odd, but I've got very few gifts in life that the man above is after giving me. And one of them is stress means absolutely nothing to me. I do a lot of shouting. I do a lot of screaming, but it's more anger. It's never stress. It's never I remember Martin, my boss, always told me, I always call him the boss because the only one who taught me how to do things. Everyone else told me how not to do things. But he always said there's no problems getting angry as long as you're prepared for it. And I've always brought that mentality with me. So I'm not going to fly off the handle ever because, I don't shout or scream at staff. You could walk in and we'd be doing 100 people and you're kind of going, it feels like you're only doing 4 or 5 because, well, everybody knows what to do. And there's no point shouting and screaming because that doesn't get the job done any quicker and certainly doesn't get it done any better. So there's zero stress. I'd love to turn around and say zero stress in my life, whether it be work, play, or whatever. Just doesn't seem to bother me at all. I get angry. Don't be.
Sure.
But I do get angry.
I've worked, throughout growing up and in college and whatnot as well in the restaurant business. I was just waiting, but it is an unbelievably stressful. I don't think there's any more stressful business. I love
that on there. Do you know when you say it's just waiting? That's an Irish mentality, because every other country, particularly European countries, it's a profession. So when you see the Irish people turn around going, I'm just doing this to get myself through college. When you go to Switzerland, or a lot of my team are Croatian, they're all professionals. And because this is their, and I often wonder how we never take, a waiter or a waitress or whatever in the country is, that's actually my job, and I don't know if it's because it's been talked down for so long or whatever, but people should be very proud. What do you do for a living? I'm a waiter. I'm a waitress, You're
right. We don't have that culture.
Yeah.
It was funny you say that, because it was in the US. I went out for a summer and I was working in this amazing restaurant in Philadelphia on Penn's campus. And exactly as you said, it was a completely different animal. I mean, it was a profession. Now, we didn't get paid well, but we made tips, big tips, if we were lucky and all. But you were on a different standing for sure. You were on the same standing as anybody else in the building. You were treated with the exact same respect, and you were treated. So I understand. You're right. We don't seem to have that culture in Ireland. Can I ask you how, Paul, then you came and what was involved in opening up your business with your brother down in Killarney?
Yeah, so I wrote a book, and I give the long version. The book is called The Hooker in the Lobby. I'm actually going to be doing an audio version of it fairly soon, trying to give somebody a bit of a laugh when they're driving. They can listen to me. And again, so what I go through in the book is why I left hotels. And very simply, I was in one place, and I don't name anywhere when I'm talking about this for obvious reasons, but I was in one place, and we had been initially promised a huge bonus to the executive management team because the hotel was in serious trouble when we first started. And we knew that was going to kick in year 2. And when everybody started realizing just how much it was going to kick in, all of a sudden it was, well, we're going to have to put a cap on that, because the guys above us in a group scheme were getting nothing like what we were about to get. So there was no way we were going to get it.
Okay.
I went, well, I burst my ass off for this. I've been here literally every single day for the last 2 years, making sure that this is, what we're going to get. And they went, well, that's not happening now. Here you are. Now, look, it could have gone down a different route legally or whatever, but I had no interest in that. I'm very much pride in what I do. And I turned around and I said, well, if that's all you think of me, I said, I tell you what, lads, there's 1 month's notice. You couldn't make this up. About 2 hours later, a friend of mine rings me and he goes, listen, I've just been offered a restaurant here in Lucan, and I have no idea how to do the business side of things. I said, I'll be there in a month. And he goes, no, you need to come out and see it. And I went, no, decided, I'll be there in a month. And so literally I packed my bags after a month, went and did there for a year, knowing that we were eventually going to end up down in Kerry and find something, because my wife is from Kenmare, she was moving back down to Kenmare. And so when we were looking around in Kenmare, there was no sign of anything. And my one condition was to Elaine was that, that we buy the property. I'm not going to be paying rent forever on in and have no security. So we had to wait probably longer than what I, initially planned on. But eventually, Trevaud's in Killarney came up for sale. And so I stood outside it for about an hour, and I looked at it and I went, yeah, that's for me. So I rang the brother and I said, here's the plan. And he goes, yeah, perfect. I'll come down with you. And so that was in March.
What coaxed you out of Dublin? Like just your wife?
Do you know what? Coming up and down, I better say, of course, it was my wife. Yes, I better say. But coming up and down from Dublin to Kenmare, over all the Christmases, over all the times that I spent down in Kenmare, I was just going, geez, the quality of life down here is just a different world. And, if we're planning on getting married and having kids, well, I want to give my kids the best option, the best quality of life they can have. So that was the real kind of, and now do I miss Dublin? My parents are still there. My sister's up there. I go up maybe 5 times a year, something like that. And if I never had to go, if my parents and my sister moved down here, I probably wouldn't go back up, because I just love Kerry so much. It's very hard to describe unless you're living here. It's a different pace. It's a different mentality. A simple example is for our second kid, when he was starting school, about a week before the school was starting for him to go into junior infants, my wife met the master, the principal. And she goes, "Oh my God, I never registered him for school." He goes, "Don't worry, sure, I knew he was coming. He's registered."
Right.
And I think that's the best way to sum up country living.
Right.
I mean, it has its downsides, obviously, but I mean, the scenery, the pace, the quality, it's a different world. I'll have to admit, I love where I live.
Absolutely. I'm a Clare supremacist. There's Clare till I die, but my father's a Kerry man, and so I know I have dual loyalties. But that's the thing, is that when you set up your restaurant, so again, I come from Clare. We're, families involved in tourism as well. We've the Burn, we have it all. But any honest Clare man will tell you and tip his hat to Killarney. The Killarney was always the jewel in the crown of Irish tourism. And when you started your restaurant, that would very much have been the case. So when give us a sense, if you can, of what it was like to start a restaurant in Killarney, and how that has progressed and what you're seeing on the streets maybe today.
Yeah, so we started in March 2003. You can imagine 2 dubs coming down to Kerry. I mean, we're 6 points down before we even kick a ball.
Height of the Celtic Tiger, though. Good time.
Yeah, very true, very true. But we were doing a lot of different things on the menu. So I had ostrich, my kangaroo, a couple of different things that I was trying to say, let's try and open our eyes to, different style of food, because we had it in the restaurant up in Dublin where I was, and it was very successful up there. And I mean, we had all the other things because it was very much a tourist town. So we had the rack of lamb, we had the salmon, we had we had everything else that the tourists really wanted, the prawns and all the kind of stuff.
Right.
And it took us, I'm not going to lie, it took us 2-3 years to really kind of get up and running and get going. And I said to Mark, my brother, I said, look, that's our menu, that's our style. And I budgeted in to the account starting off, like 2 years of us struggling before we get up and running and make a name for ourselves. That's exactly what happened. Then all of a sudden we started becoming a big hit with the horse racing crowd. And there was 2-3 festivals down here. Next minute you're seeing all the owners, the trainers, the jockeys coming in. Then we get in with 1 or 2 big tour operators because of what we were doing and we knew how to do it. And then all of a sudden we start winning all the locals over and we start getting a great name for ourselves.
Fantastic.
Then we get to 2008, 2007. I'm going, geez, if we keep going like this, we're flying.
Yeah.
And I said to Mark, so when we started, I mean, we were both late 20s, early 30s. And I said to Mark, the key to this is we're going to pay the loan off quicker than what we should. I said, as soon as we get that debt cleared, we're in a much, like now we're 100% in control. And my father always said, only ever spend cash. Because that way, that's all you can ever spend. So that's, to this day, still doesn't have a credit card. If he has 50 quid, he'll spend 30. So he still knows he has 20.
Good at him.
So we always, So we were always paying more off the loan, to the point I remember the bank manager came in and said, what the hell are you doing here? You don't want to be doing that. Just pay off the interest. Just put all that into a savings scheme. At the end of the year or the end of the term of the loan, the savings are worth more and you paid off and you have cash. And if I had to listen to them, there'd be nothing in the savings and I'd still owe what we had originally. So 2007, we have a phenomenal year. And then 2008, the crash comes.
Of course.
I mean, Jesus, I don't believe this. So 2008, we deal with 2008, 9, 10, whatever. And then we're starting to pick up again. And we're starting to get going again. And next minute, 2019, November was probably the second proudest day. I better say that in case my wife watches this. We paid our last payment off in the loan. We beat the bank by 7 years and saved ourselves a phenomenal amount of interest.
Wow, you had the property paid off, what, from 2003 to 19, in 16 years?
16 years.
Wow.
And we bought when it was
done.
Pretty top heavy. Thanks very much. But what we did, we sacrificed our own salary, our own wages, our own money.
That's why I'm saying well done, of course. It
just to pay off the loan. Yeah. And when
you would have bought, sorry, Paul, but again, because that was the height of the Celtic Tiger, you would have paid a fortune for that building at that time. Pretty much. And that's one of the things that annoys me, when people turn around and say, we're never going to be able to afford to buy a house and you're 19 years of age and you're having your 6th cappuccino with fucking, let's say, frappuccino mocha crap. And I'm kind of going, well, what are you working? What are you doing? So I was working since I was 12. I've had my kids working since they were 12. I said, I don't care. Cut the grass, do whatever, earn money so you become independent at such an early age. So we paid off the last payment, November 2019. Never forget it. And it was just like the relief to pay it off. And just go. And in my head, I was saying, so my worst case scenario, if anything ever happens, I shut the door and at least the building's paid off. So we're flying. Everything is fantastic. And then March of 2020, literally 3-4 months later, as everybody knows, the whole world collapsed, but more so for the hospitality industry and more so in Ireland. And so up until then, on all my social medias, I was posting
lovely dishes, furry animals, lovely crowds, lovely scenery. And then all of a sudden, as I said, I was never here before. You guys made me this to the government. They turned me into the demon that is now on social media going, now I'm actually going to call you out on every single thing you do wrong here now, because it's your fault. So if I ran down the streets of Killarney, bollock naked, and everyone turned around and says, well, we're never going into his restaurant again, I say, well, that's on me. That's my fault.
Right.
When I see my industry literally implode in front of my very eyes, I go, but that's on you. So I'm going to call you out on this. And here we are today.
Let's start picking that apart. So, Paul, because really what I wanted to establish there, talking about your background and all, is that you are, I would say rare, but certainly the ballsiest species in Ireland. And that is an individual who wants to take on that responsibility, the entrepreneur, the independent guy who is going to try and make it himself. Ireland, I often say there was nothing done in Ireland without a grant from the government, that we're very much still motivated by, we're risk averse. If there's a grant in it, I'll do it. But, to stand on my own 2 feet and do it myself, that's still, unfortunately, a rarity. And so when I see someone like yourself who, from it's in your blood. Like you say, you were standing beside your dad as a kid. Then you've watching over his shoulder, learning the family business. Then you've gone along and you've done your apprenticeship in all the various hotels, learning every aspect of the business. So you've done everything right. You've been, and there it was very interesting hearing your financial. You've been incredibly financially responsible, taking care of your property first and foremost, sacrificing personally to make sure that you do that. So now we get to your business. I take it was never bar the collapse in 2018, which again is because of government shenanigans. But let's say 2009-10, I'm sure would have been a very stressful time for you in particular, up to 2012, like everybody else after that period. But your business has never been in danger through anything you have done personally. You've done everything right. So what changes in 2020? What starts adding major pressure to your business?
Yeah, so I suppose, first of all, some people might say I was the idiot. I didn't have to stand up and shout because personally we were fine. And I'm kind of turning around and going, I always hated the schoolyard bully. Always hated it, because thankfully I was never picked on because I was well able to take care of myself. And whether it be, I always tell my kids, the greatest weapon you'll ever carry is your mouth. And so I was always able to, stand up for myself, never get pushed around. But you'd see it in school going, I'm like, I go over to him and say, leave him alone. What are you asking? So I always hated this guy who was picking on him. The biggest bully in the country is the government when they press that button. And I'm looking, we closed our restaurant down before anyone told us to close the restaurant down. Because I turned around, I got all the staff together, and I turned around, I said, lads, this looks a bit serious here. And I said, and I know they're talking about this, and we're seeing initially going back to COVID, and we're seeing how it initially played out. And I'm kind of going, let's just be safe here, because I'm expecting to see zombies coming running down the road at any stage. Right. This is how serious it's looking. Then our Taoiseach at the time, Leo Varadkar, comes out and he tells us 150,000 people are going to be dead within 3 months in Ireland, and every single person in Ireland is going to have a family member or a loved one who will be dead. Holy Jesus, this is serious. But we had shut down before he made that speech, and I said, like everyone said, look, it'll only be 2 weeks. And then time progressed and time went on, and I started going, I'm looking at their policies and I'm going, hang on a second here, lads. And I kind of was saying nothing at the time, and I was going, all right, hang on a second. And then me being me, I turned around and I went, so I can open up a pop-up deli, and that's fine. I can't have my restaurant, but I can open up a pop-up deli, and that's okay. And that itself was just like insanity personified, because how can I open up anything? I'm just doing something different, but I'm still serving food, and 10 people could walk into my restaurant as a deli, pick up a loaf of bread or pick up a chicken and mushroom pie and go home, but I can't have 10 people sitting down having dinner. Insane. And then I started realizing that this is just make it up as we go along here, lads. And then we open up June, I think it was June 29th or June 30th or whatever in 2020, under the most ridiculous of policies that had been put down by the CMO of the country. The €9 meal. When you think about it, like, did COVID know I was eating, and it was leave him alone, he's eating, but attack this guy, he's only sitting there. It was crazy. And as we went on, we now allow, and this was the one thing that really tipped me over the edge. Bars and restaurants in hotels can open, but standalone bars and restaurants can't.
Right.
And when we look back in time, and I'm delighted, that's why I always do these things, because I want, whether it be the alien overlords or people in generations to come, look back and go, that bald, fat lunatic from Killarney was right. What we did was just insane. So to keep us closed for June and July in hospitality were two of the biggest months that we could have been taking in revenue, which meant the government didn't have to be bailing us out. And then the government would have saved an absolute fortune, and we would have been getting in our money. To cut a very long story short, the reason why we're in so much trouble now at the moment is because they shut us down basically for 2 years. They stopped us from trading, and now we're just playing catch up all the time. And because the costs of running a business have gone so high now, we're not making profit to have cash flow to pay our revenue obligation. That's what I said to the minister. That is the problem. You want to solve a problem, find the source. That is the problem. We are not generating profit after shutting us down for 2 years and then destroying the country with mass immigration, that we are not making enough money to sustain our business, and that is the problem. So I start shouting and screaming. And I remember turning around the Taoiseach at the time, Micheál Martin. I said, if that, I won't quote word for word because we will keep it trying somewhat family friendly. I said, if that beep gets on a plane with a bowl of shamrock to go meet Biden, I'm opening my restaurant tomorrow, because clearly we don't have a global pandemic going on. And what I got Micheál Martin and Leo Varadkar both to admit in the Shannon and the Dáil was that there was no evidence to shut down standalone bar and restaurants and allow hotel bars and restaurants to open. There was no evidence to say that it was safer here because, I don't know, maybe COVID knew you were staying the night. Leave him alone. He's staying the night. Very, very smart virus that we had. But we're going to shut down the guys in the bars and restaurants. So they both admitted it in the Dáil and in the Shannon. We've no evidence, but we're doing it anyway. And I just went, I'm going to say this, I just went, motherfuckers. I said, who do you think you are to turn around and decide the livelihood of my industry? Just, there's no evidence, but we're going to do it anyway. And that's when I lost 100% respect for the governments who were running and destroying my industry. And when people turn around and say, you know, why are you so loud and why are you so vocal? As a kid, I dreamed of playing for Ireland. And I learned that very, very quickly, that Liverpool were not coming knocking on the door. So I wasn't going to put on the green jersey. But what I do put on the green jersey is representing tourism. And more importantly, I love my country so much. I was so blessed that I got to represent it on a global stage on Amazon Prime with my travel show and my cooking show. And I'm telling millions of people the world over, wait till you see where I'm bringing you here. Wait to look at what's here in Killarney. Look what's here in Kenmare. Look what's here in Armagh. Look what's here. And I went all over the country showing them. And I said, and look what I'm doing. I'm cooking with our local produce. You won't find this anywhere because you guys still think all we eat is corned beef and cabbage and a bit of tripe and drisheen. But I'm going to show you Ireland is a million miles ahead in our food scene. And that was my Jersey moment. And all of a sudden, I'm looking at these guys going, now we're just going to destroy tourism. Just going to destroy.
I think, like I said, I find it hard to know if, like, that it is, again, I just my own, I've explained it elsewhere on social media. People who listen to this will probably understand what I'm getting at. I believe that Ireland is and always has been since 1932 a quasi-socialist state. That is, we're handout dependent. And I think that these guys thought that they could there's a sense of paternalism or nanny statism where they thought genuinely that they could just shut it down, we'd all comply because, you know, we're all good boys and girls, and that they could throw a little cash at it because that's what they do always, whenever. That, as I said, that you are an unusual animal because you don't come looking to the government for all your answers. You go out and do it yourself. And this was a crucial moment where the guys like you, the do-it-yourself guys, who have it infinitely harder than, you know, brown-nosing up to the right local politician, getting your grant for X, Y, and Z. You know, everybody knows that that's how Ireland works if you want it to be that way. But you haven't done it that way. You've done it yourself. And this, to me, COVID was the crossroads between when we were going to determine what kind of a state we were going to be entering the 2020s. And very much this nanny state, handout state won over for me. You know, the guys like you who were doing it yourself had your throats cut. You were shut down and essentially forced to if you want to survive, take the handouts, or instead of just being allowed to decide your own fate. And to me, it's telling that there was no major pushback against that. You, of course, you've been a fantastic advocate in your in your sector, but there wasn't any major pushback. Now, I should say also, maybe that's because there wasn't allowed to be a pushback. You yourself, I should point out, were a very noticeable and high-profile figure on RTE and other news radio shows, and maybe less so after you gave it to Micheál Martin and the other ad card. Did you find yourself blackballed?
Oh, 100%. Cancelled. Like, I wouldn't say overnight. But I was getting phone calls from mates of mine in the industry going, why are you shouting and screaming for? Like, geez, my bank balance has never been better. And I turn around and go, how much do you owe to revenue? And like most restaurateurs would turn around and go, I don't know. I need my accountant to tell me that. And that goes back to what I was saying earlier on, how lucky I was to have done accounts. And I says, well, whatever's in that account is not yours. And as soon as we reopen, costs are going to start going through the roof because they want their money back. And so they were telling me to shut up. And I'm kind of going, but I need you to join me. But I don't want to lose my, my regular 5-minute slot on the TV. I don't want to lose my little column on the Sunday Times. I don't want to lose my this and that. And I was going, yeah, but I mean, like, that's not how, do you sleep at night? That's not where you get your pride from. So I was doing a lot of interviews at the start of COVID. And you got thrown with the same crap all the time, but you're not a scientist. And of course, I'm looking at him going, neither are you. I said, but I tell you what, this guy over here from Harvard is more qualified than our CMO. And he's telling that the CMO of this country is wrong. So how about we put the two of them on an interview and let them trash it out? But if people remember, we've incredibly short memories. That's, thank God, I have the size and the memory of an elephant, that when I turn around and I go, all these interviews were all carried out one-on-one. And when you think about when people go on about their conspiracy theories about the media being bought and all that kind of stuff, the media only had one client at the time, and that was the government, because they were the ones pushing out all their advertising. Now, if I only had one client coming to the restaurant, if he told me I should grow blue hair, I'd listen to him because he's my only client, and I do whatever he's going to tell me to do. So when I'm on the media and I'm turning around saying, listen, I'm just saying, I'm asking the question, are we sure this is the right thing to do? I remember Claire Byrne and when they were on the show, and they were having this in plastic bubbles, and there was a comedian, and I think your man, Dr. Luke, I can't remember who was there, but they're each in a bubble, and this is the future of concerts because we won't be able to interact. And I'm going, does anyone turn around and say, would you shut up? This is nuts what you're saying. This is absolute insanity. We need to learn to stand 2 meters away from everyone for the rest of our lives. We might never get to hug people again. The stuff they were coming out when I was gone. Would you just, have you lost all common sense and the run of yourself, which is exactly what happened. But what was killing the media was they couldn't answer me. So when I turned around, I did a very well-known radio show, and it was about the immigration part. And I knew exactly what they were going to ask me. I was the first person to pick out about immigration when to say, population of Killarney's gone up by 14% in 3 months. Is anybody else spider senses tingling that this could be a problem? I said, because if this continues, we have a serious problem. And if they keep taking the tourist accommodation, the town is in serious trouble. By the time I went and did the radio, and I was called every name under the sun, thankfully, water off a duck's back. I don't care what you call me. I have a simple thing. If 1 million people tell me I'm wrong, it doesn't make them right. And I turn around and I say to myself, 6 months later, we've now gone to 40%. And I'm on the radio and I'm turning around saying, we have a 40% increase in population in Killarney. It's complete madness. And this is a saying in towns and villages all over the country, but I can only speak from what I can see myself. And he turns around and goes, do you not think that's a bit racist, Paul? And I knew he was going to ask me that. And I went, well, I tell you what, Pat, to put it into context, if we did the same in Dublin, there'd be 650,000 of them in Dublin. Yeah. I was like, I can't argue with that. And I got a phone call from the producer of the radio show, which I'd gotten from so many different radio shows and TV shows. Can't have you on again. And I went, I didn't swear. I thought I did okay.
Oh, so it was overtly stated that you're done.
100%. We can't argue with you. You're making too much sense. So we've 20% of the world who think this way. We've 20% of the world that think that way. And we've got the 60% in the middle, that if you can persuade them, well, then that's going to persuade the movement. And they didn't want somebody like me who'll turn around and go, I'm not asking you to think like me, but I am asking you to think. So Are you sure that that's a good idea? Are we sure this is what's right? But initially, like everything, it doesn't affect enough people. So shut up, bloody restaurateur, shouting and screaming again. Would you shut up? That would be the painter and decorator. But in year 2, he's turned around to me and gone, "Oh, so sorry, Paul, you know, I come into painter. No, I don't have the money to bring in. I'm going to do it myself."
All right.
Now all of a sudden the painter and decorator is going, "Whoa, hang on a second. I'm losing gigs." The musician is losing gigs because the bar is down from 100 people to 10 people. I don't have the 200, 300, 400 quid to pay the musician. And you can always tell the state of economy by the amount of people playing music. In a booming economy, you've got a 4-piece band. In a crap economy, you've got one, if any. So all of a sudden, all these people, and the spin-off effect. I mean, if I'm going well, I'm buying new shoes, I'm going out for dinner, I'm buying, you know, new shirt for the restaurant and all, and so are all my staff, everybody's spending. All of a sudden we shrink that in, and the knock-on effect is where we are now. And now it's beginning to really hurt people. And now people are going, geez, like COVID, maybe we should have actually listened to this guy.
So, Paul, is it fair to say that there's 2 major strands that is killing your industry, the hospitality industry right now, and that is inflation, which is, as you pointed out already, you know, the payback for all of these handouts for shutting down the economy for 2 years, that you know you have to pay the piper, and then there's this other element, which is the government policy of shredding tourism and hospitality by taking the beds out of these to support IPAS. So are you kind of fighting on 2 fronts there?
Yeah, it's as simple as that. So it cost me 100 grand more to trade, to do business now than it did in 2019. 100,000 euro for a small restaurant.
Whoa! What kind of costs there, Paul? So
the big difference will be wages. Wages have gone through the roof, and then you have a knock-on effect of employers oversight that have increased because of the back of that. Now people will turn around and say, "Do you not want to pay your staff?" Well, I have no problems paying my staff 50 quid an hour, but you're going to pay 200 quid for a breast of chicken.
Right.
That's how it works. And what I've always said to the government, and when I met the minister, I turned around and I said, "You can't keep increasing minimum wage. It doesn't work." And how do we know that? Because you've done it for the last 10, 15 years and it hasn't worked. I said, but I'll explain to you how we can make it better. So very simple maths, just for argument's sake. Let's just say the guy on the minimum wage is getting 500 quid an hour or 500 quid a week. And he gets taxed 50 quid a week. So he comes out with 450 quid at the end of the week. The government want him on 500. So now we need to pay him 550. So they still take their 50 quid tax. But the problem is I'm now paying them an extra 50, 60, whatever it is per week. So I need to get that back somehow. So I need to increase my prices. So I say to the government, why don't we just remove them from the tax bracket and take them all out of the tax? So that 500 quid that I'm giving them, they now get 500 quid. But you won't do that because now you're down money. And that's it in a nutshell. So the government won't do it. So when they say they're increasing the minimum wage, people need to really, again, don't think like me, just think. People need to understand when I pay and increase the minimum wage, the person I'm saying I'm going to help by increasing the minimum wage is the last person to benefit because it's the sneakiest way to increase a tax intake. So now all of a sudden we're paying more money on employers and employees RSI. We're now paying more and more, so the government are getting more and more. Out of that 50 quid a week I give the employee, he's getting an extra 20. Oh, that's great, sure, he's 20 quid up. No, he's not, because it's actually costing him 30 quid a week more to survive because inflation has gone up. Right. He's actually down a tenner. My way is very, very simple. You take the hit, government. You take the hit. Now you'll understand why I'm shouting and screaming. Of course you're not going to do that, because now you're going to have to find money to replace that 50 quid a week that you've lost from the guy in the minimum wage. So when they say we're increasing the minimum wage, the problem with that for business side of things is the guy who was the minimum wage is now caught up with, well, I want more because he's only in the door. So I want 600 quid a week. And the guy who's on 600 quid, well, I want 750 because I'm the most qualified guy here. And next minute, your wages are gone out of control. So when I was in hotels, if my wage costs went over 20%, the GM would literally hang my nuts from the rafters if I got it wrong. Now I'm between 45 to 50% of my business is gone on. And that's everybody across the board. So now we know why businesses aren't sustainable. Now we can see why so many businesses are closing down. But you try and point this out, I might as well be talking to the cat outside. You
can be paid, when you're paid up to 50% in wages alone, that's insane.
You've no chance. And restaurants are incredibly labor intensive. And that's when I said to the minister, say, here's how we get the employers RSI. Very simple, but they won't do it because the friends are the guys who were about to be affected. We base our employers RSI on your turnover, not on the amount of staff that you have. So my turnover is whatever it is with 10, 12 staff to run the place. Sure, one good solicitor would make that on his own.
Yeah.
One good doctor would make that in 6 months.
Here's a question, Paul. You mentioned this, you know, and again, talked about, is the media bought by the government, essentially? Well, not long ago, the media had their VAT scrapped completely scrapped. Whereas you, in your industry, which employs 150 to 200,000 people, I believe, right, in Ireland, the hospitality industry is paying 13.5% or 13%.
Yeah,
13.5 VAT. How does that make any sense? If you want to protect your one indigenous industry, your biggest indigenous industry, your most employee intensive industry, as you were saying, instead of adding stealth taxes or taxes, why aren't we, just as an obvious one, why aren't we cutting that 13% down to zero, scrapped completely? Why would we remove it on the media? I mean, there's no reason to remove it on the media, let's be honest.
Except for one. I have a huge following on social media, but I don't have 90% of the population watching it, which the media do. So who do we buy and pay? Well, we buy and pay the guy who's telling the story to the masses. I was watching a TV show and some guy turned around and said, Micheál Martin is brilliant. I said, which Micheál Martin is he talking about?
Right.
Because I'm going, how can you say he's doing brilliant when so many people are struggling? And you turn around and I don't just talk about the restaurants. I'm talking to the guy beside me who has the knick-knack shop, who turns around to me and he goes, you know how much I took from 10 o'clock this morning to 3 o'clock this afternoon? How much? €3.50. I sold a fridge magnet of Killarney. I said, how the hell did you do that? And he goes, well, how many have you got in your restaurant right now? And I went, actually, yeah, good point. None.
Well, there now we're probably as well talking about the second prong of this devastating attack on your industry, which is the removal of beds from hotels. Obviously, the removal of what's it, up to 40% of the beds nationwide or outside of Dublin just obviously means less feet on the ground, higher prices, because hoteliers who do remain want to make their money, which means less walking around money in people's pockets, which is going to have a devastating effect on you, pubs, the knick-knack shop, as you say, and everybody else.
100%. And also add to that, and again, as I said, I've been called every name under the sun. I don't mind when people call me anything, but again, add to that the sentiment change in the town that's known as the tourist capital of Ireland, when all of a sudden we're kind of looking around going, what's going on here? These aren't tourists. So you have Americans. The sentiment between Ireland and America, in my opinion, is at the lowest it's ever been for a number of reasons.
Yeah.
We have a current Taoiseach who said, don't use the word Trumpian. We don't like that. We had a previous Taoiseach who turned around and called him a gal and then backtracked as soon as he got elected because he tried to say, how should we meant that as a term of endearment? Don't worry, that's what we are. Well, I tell you what, if somebody called me a gal, I don't think that's a term of endearment. No. We had a previous Taoiseach again, Leo Varadkar, who turned around and said, listen, very, very simple. America re-electing Trump is a mistake. In fact, the world is going to suffer if Trump gets re-elected. You think this sentiment doesn't carry over to America? Whether he's right or wrong, doesn't matter. We're supposed to be a neutral country, and half the American people voted for him. Whether he is the biggest whatever or the greatest whatever, it's irrelevant. You must respect the office and that person who sits in it. You send out a sentiment to go, we don't like you. Imagine what we'd be thinking if they turn around and say, we don't like your government. Well, actually, I'd forgive them for saying that. But if they were to turn around and say, we don't like your government, or we don't like your this, how do you think our sentiment would change? You couple all that up in such a short period of time, and the price that's now gone. For the first time ever, I'm hearing Americans going, God damn it, you guys are expensive now. From an American, where you pay 60 quid for a steak in New York, they think we're expensive. So you put all that together, and whatever they think, without America, Ireland can turn off the lights, especially when it comes to tourism. We don't have the American tourists coming here. So the last thing we need is to be sending a negative vibe across the pond to say, and shouting and screaming, championing other wars that are going on, picking a side as a neutral country when it's going against what I'm not saying whether you're free Palestine or if you're, cheer on Israel. I'm just saying we're a neutral country, and what you're saying is seriously damaging our business. You can have your morals, but bring all that together over a 2-3 year period. And no wonder tourism is down. And then the government tried to turn around and said their own department, the CSO, Central Statistics Office, were wrong. Imagine that. The guys who they're paying to give the stats. No, nonsense. Don't believe what you're seeing. Don't believe what you're hearing. All you need to do is walk around towns and villages. If you think the tourism that's gone 20, 30, 40% in Killarney, in Kenmare and other towns, some towns have 100% of their accommodation is gone. Lisdoonvarna, the matchmaking festival, can't get a single room. The bars, the restaurants are gone. Everybody knew. Geez, even Christy Moore wrote a song about it. Everybody knew Lisdoonvarna.
It's devastating. It's devastating in Clare. West Clare is destroyed.
So at what stage are we going to take our heads out of the sand or someone else's ass and realize we have a serious problem going on here, that we need to seriously fix our tourism? Because tourism, when it gets decimated, when tourism goes down, it's like seeing a little crack in the wall of the house. There's only a little crack. There's another little crack. There's just only another little crack. And then nobody understands why the house collapsed, because nobody fixed the little cracks. And tourism being decimated, the knock-on effect is now beginning to affect so many more people.
Well, you know, the FDI economy, the foreign direct investment economy, has been completely overheated since the start of the millennium, and it's crashed once already. I mean, it's a lot of people will, you know, it's very easy to see how it will crash again, either through the stupid diplomatic behavior of the government, just, you know, saying something so outrageous that they're going to cause people to pull out, or be it that Donald Trump wants to reshore some of the big businesses they've lost to us, or just a global economic downturn. There's so many ways that a massive hit to that can happen. And when that happens, we've always had, you know, our fail-safe, our one safety valve was tourism. It was the hospitality sector. And I can't get my head around this. It's deliberate vandalism of our number one indigenous industry, one that has served us and saved us for decades and decades. I can't get my head around how reckless they're being with it, Paul. I just can't.
I mean, look, they always say the difference between the conspiracy theory and the truth is 6 months. And I don't want to go down the rabbit holes of this is being done on purpose. I genuinely don't want to think a government are deliberately doing what they're doing, because if that's the case, we might as well just all back our bags in now. Yeah. I genuinely don't think that's the case.
Yeah,
I think a lot of it is to do with, I can understand now why.
Out of touch, do you think? Are they just?
I think, see, the book's balance. So here's the problem. So a government's answer to you will be, what are you on about? The book's balance. We're actually in surplus. We're in full employment. What are you going on about? You're mad. Everything is fine for now.
Right.
But like you said, what happens when Trump pulls the plug? And it's not as easy as a Pfizer or a Dell or a Microsoft say, right, we're going back to the States. I mean, you can't just shift a 5,000 staff business over to the middle of Texas or Arizona or God knows where and go, right, here we go. We've got the know-how, we've got the intelligence, we've got the quality of life. It's not going to be that easy. But in principle, they'll figure out something. Either way, it's going to affect the corporation tax that's coming in. And you affect the corporation tax. If all I care about is my corporation tax and to hell with what's going on behind me, well, then when that goes down and you come back after me, I'm going, well, I have nothing left to give you because you've screwed me over for the last 5 years. I have nothing left to give you from my restaurant. Well, then we'll take it out of your wages. Well, there's not much left there either. And you're right. We go up to the next level. We go up to the fellow who's earning 50 to 80 grand. We'll take a fiver off him and the guy who's, so now all of a sudden people are going to see, and how are we seeing that? More than likely indirect taxation. Every kid who's now going to college is going to be paying €1,000 extra from next year on. We're seeing it in the price of doing your shopping. Why? Well, you're paying VAT and all that kind of stuff. So look, the government are going to get their money whatever way they want. They've taken it all off me. And when they were, I remember the best example was during COVID. And this was, I learned one hell of a lesson in COVID. When the first year, when they shut down the bars, they turn around and they go, right, the only place you can have a pint is a restaurant, but you can only stay there for an hour and 45 minutes. And I go, okay, COVID is there with the watch.
Right.
Yeah, attack. It's gone an hour and 46. So what we used and what the restaurants did was I turn around at 6 o'clock and I say, listen, lads, sorry for being a pain in the ass here, but you got to be gone by 8. I got to get ready because we're only allowed an hour and 45 minutes, and in case somebody comes in, or else it's to be closed by 11. So the second sitting that came in at 8, I'd say, lads, got to be gone by 11. Sorry about that. And then we'll go an hour and 40. Don't be worrying about that. You can say, just be gone by 11. So everybody knew. So they turn around to me and say, can I have another bottle of wine after the main course? Of course you can. Not a bottle, because I can't get a bottle of wine anywhere else. So they're going, all right. any chance of another? I said, lad, you can have whatever you want, just be gone by 11. So I was going, the 2 or 3 months that we got to open, I was going, this is the best take I've ever had in my life because the bars are closed. Until next year, they shut me down.
Right.
And I went, Jesus Christ, it was so wrong. When they shut the bars down, I should have been standing beside them. Open up the bars because I'm nothing without that pub. I'm nothing without my knick-knack shop. I'm nothing without the Jarvis. When people come to Ireland, we're known the world over for one reason, because we're bloody brilliant. And we're great at selling the crack to the Yanks who come over, the French, the English, we're brilliant at what we do. And now all of a sudden, the cracks are coming into it. And geez, there's not so many restaurants here. But geez, the price of a pint has gone through the roof. Geez, the Jarvis an extra tenner when now all of a sudden, I don't think we'll go to Killarney. I don't think I'll go to Sligo. I don't think I'll go to Cork. Yeah.
Well, and also again, now I'll take the brunt of the being a racist accusation, but the reality is, Paul, I grew up, as I say, in Clare. I grew up all around tourism. Like the west of Ireland can be miserable. It can be depressing as hell in winter. It can be a dark place to live. Absolutely. But in the summer months, the buzz of the tourists around, you know, that bringing in a bit of the outside world, that contact, you know, I had an American girlfriend in college and all this. It opened up the world to you. Well, there's a big difference when you go now to these tourism towns, and it's just foreign men hanging around on the corner or hanging out outside of the closed down hotel. And it's dead aside from that. The vibe, the feeling, it's just not, they're not pleasant places to be anymore. Of course, nobody wants to come around there for a holiday anymore, even if they can afford it.
100%. I met this guy in Kenmare.
The buzz is gone.
Huh?
The buzz is gone.
Yeah, absolutely. I met this guy in Kenmare there a couple of weeks back, and I went, Jesus, I said, you all right? What's wrong with you? He said, do you know that I was the first black lad in Kenmare about 40 years ago? And I went, right, and he goes, bloody hundreds of them now. I'm not special anymore. Now, he was joking, and he was having a bit of a laugh.
But that's how it was.
And when you see 4, 5, 6 guys standing on a corner in any rural town in Ireland, don't forget, 40 years ago, we were eating like fish fingers and beans on toast. That was the staple diet for many Irish. We were a poor peasant country up until the late 80s, early 90s. We had nothing. And all of a sudden, we start expanding. And now we're looking at, hang on a second, we were a 99.99% white Catholic nation. Yeah. And in 5 years, everything has changed.
Right. And there's nobody processing. No, you're not allowed to talk about that.
Because you're labeled everything. And it takes a strong person to turn around and go, don't call me racist. To ask my black friend, am I racist? Don't call me anti-immigrant. Ask my dad, am I anti-immigrant? And that's why they're taking me off the radio, because I'm saying, but I'm not racist. I'm not anti-immigrant. I have no problems. I'm never going to blame the accommodation provider that, whether some people might say sold their soul, because if I had a 200-bedroom hotel and the government offered me a Euro Millions win every year for the foreseeable future, don't be a hypocritical gobshite and say, I'd never take that. 100%. So I don't need to staff it. I don't need to insure it. I don't need to rate it. I don't need to worry about anything. And I can be in Marbella every Friday going, the money's in. Let's have another pina colada. Of course you're going to do that. Don't be so like full of crap that you're going to say, I'd never take that. So I don't blame them. I don't blame the immigrant, because if we went to war with England and France offered me $6,000 a month to stay in a 4-star hotel and feed me for the rest of my days, you tell me I wouldn't head to France. I don't blame the guy coming in. I blame 100% the government for their inept policies. How could we solve this, Paul? This is very simple. And this was one of the other reasons that I said on the radio. How can we solve this? All the onus is now on the airlines. What do you mean? If you arrive into Dublin and have no passport, or Shannon or Cork Airport or Kerry Airport, and you have no passport, I'm fining Ryanair, Aer Lingus, or whoever, 20 grand a man. I guarantee you we'd have a policy within days of saying, well, we actually scanned your passport and we've sent it across to where you're going. So they have a copy of it. You don't need the hard copy. We have it. How can we do that? Well, we did it for COVID, no problems. It's amazing how emergency legislation can be done overnight when it suits a narrative, but when it solves a problem that the Irish people are having, no, we can't do that. Sure, that's too technical. That should take years to do. But we could do it for COVID, for Christ's sakes. And now all of a sudden the onus is on the airlines. And now all of a sudden, well, we can't go to Ireland as it's not that easy. Why do they come to Ireland? We're giving them a social welfare benefit that's almost double their average monthly salary in Ukraine. Why wouldn't you do it? When you look at Ukraine, Eastern Ukraine is where the fighting is taking place. Western Ukraine's tourism is up 500%. So why wouldn't it be?
Yeah.
Why wouldn't it be? And ours is decimated.
Yeah.
And I kind of go, well, do you want me just to shut up and keep taking this? Do you want me just to close my door and go away? Is that what you want? Would you tell that nutjob to shut up down there? He's just been a pain in the hole. And if we call him enough things, and people need to understand on social media.
Shame him into shutting up.
Absolutely. People need to understand this in the world of social media. Everything can be bought on social media. So they can actually buy me. If they turn around to me and say, Paul, any chance you tell us you're brilliant, that the government are brilliant? I go, how much, lads? So when you see somebody...
I meant to say that, Paul, for Christ's sake.
Yeah, but they wouldn't get me. There's an exception to every rule. I've gone too deep, too far down, that I'm on too much of a role, that too many people would go. I'd hate if somebody turned around and called me a turncoat. I couldn't live with myself.
Yeah.
But there are so many people that if I'm shouting against the government, and I come up with a big spiel, turn around and try and slam me, all I need to do is buy 500 likes from my bots and from my other bots. And now you're going, how does a guy with 200 followers get 500 likes for calling me racist and whatever the hell, and shut up, you nutjob. So don't believe what you're seeing in the world of social media. Anything can be bought, anything, especially these guys that have all bot followers. I have 25,000 and they're all genuine, legit. That's why I'm getting such a huge reaction on my social media. That's right.
Because you have a highly interactive account. I see it. You get massive response. It's fantastic.
Well, it's very simple on that people need to understand. If I buy 5,000 followers, you'd look at celebrities going back when Twitter first started. How the hell did you go from 6 followers to 66,000 followers? Well, I bought them all, but they're all bots. They don't exist. And now when I tweet or I post out something on Facebook or I put something out on TikTok, it goes out to 6% of my followers. And if that goes out to the bots, it gets lost. There's no interaction. The reason why mine is getting it is because it's going out to you, anyone that's a genuine person that's following me. And if they like it, click it, the next.
So you can easily see who bought the old ones. Like you'll see, I often see accounts with 200,000. They'll follow and I'll go, oh, geez, that's a big account. Then I'll have a quick look and you'll see 6-10 likes or something on tweets, and you go, okay.
Absolutely. I saw one influencer, he did an ad for mayonnaise, 1.7 million views. I fucking think that's some amount of views, and all his other views are getting about 2,000, 3,000 views. Is mayonnaise that good that 1.78 million people wanted to watch it? Well, no, but he just paid for it. So if I pay you $5,000 to promote my mayonnaise, I'll put 1,000 of it to sponsor it, to send it out. It's all nonsense.
Paul, you're a busy man. I appreciate all the time you've given me now this morning, and I think anyone who listens to this is going to appreciate it. But before I let you go, I know you went to Dublin. You tweeted about it recently. You were in the Dáil, were you not? Did you get a chance to put your concerns to any ministers? And could you tell us what you said to them? Or if you want to keep that private, let's say that you're Paul Treyvaud TD, how would you fix the country and particularly the hospitality industry? So I put out an open letter to Taoiseach Taoiseach and the top dog, Senior Minister for Trade, Enterprise, Employment and Tourism. And I said, our industry is screwed. Long story short, what you're thinking of doing will not solve it. Cutting VAT from 13.5% to 9% will not solve it. Going forward, that's a great help. But it doesn't matter what the VAT rate is if I have nobody in the restaurant. And I won't be around trading if I have a 50 grand bill behind me to pay on, whether it be tax, VAT, employers' RSI, electricity, or suppliers or whatever. So I'm in trouble with that money that I owe right behind me here next month. But if you're budgeting to spend $500 million or $1 billion or whatever you figured out, the government is going to be down on their VAT take, I'm saying, give me that cash instead. Don't drop the VAT rate. So if you work out that it's 25, 30,000 euro per small business that's in trouble, and we need to check it. Show me you've been in your overdraft for the last 6 months. Show me your turnover has dropped. We're not paying everybody willy-nilly to go, there's a free 30 grand. We're helping the guys because if I go bust, I cost the state a hell of a lot more than it would take to solve what I'm in. And I'm in the trouble I'm in because of you, Mr. Government. Not because of me, because of you. So I'm saying, don't cut the VAT. If I was a minister for tourism, I would turn around and say, how much have I got to play with here? Right. If somebody asks you for money, if a mate asks you for money, don't just give him money. Go, I'll pay your bills for you. There you are. If you're struggling to pay your bills, I'll give it to you. I don't want you drinking it. I don't want you doing anything else with it, but I'll pay your bills for you because you're in trouble. So give me a rebate in my VAT. Give me a rebate in my rates. Give me a rebate in my employer's RSI. And before anyone's saying you're always looking for something, I don't want a single cent
but I just want a level playing field to be able to do my business, and that you've taken that away from me. That's the only reason why you're going to have to pay me back. If they don't do this, and they won't do it, because it's very easy to turn a switch from 13.5% to 9%, say, boom, gone. We gave you $500 million. Stop moaning. We gave you $1 billion. Stop moaning. But you might as well have driven down the M50 and chucked that out the window of your car, because that was a waste of money. And now you're down VAT take as well. If you gave me the cash to pay my bills and paid my bills for me, I'm out the gap. I'm sorted. And the great thing is I don't need to put my prices up. I don't need to do anything, because if you cut the VAT, the next day everyone's going, your man never dropped his prices, because I can't. Because right now I'm trading at break even, if even. So just because I get a cut in my VAT, I can't cut my prices, because I'm still trading at break even, if even. So nothing is improving. So you have to use that money wisely, be smart about it. Stop. When your man turned around to me and he said, "But sure, all our industry experts and advisors told me that this was the thing to do," and I went, "Go back and tell them they're all wrong. Every one of them is wrong." And he said, "But," I said, "because I'm the guy in the restaurant who never looked for help before, but I'm the guy who can tell you now how to fix it, because if you fix me, you're fixing thousands of businesses, because we're all in the same boat." But will they listen? I genuinely don't think they will, to be perfectly honest with you. And I don't want to be the guy who comes September, October, December, January, February of next year going, "I bloody told you so." I don't want to be that guy. Nobody wants to be more wrong in this country than me. I would absolutely love if January, February, you get on to me and say, "Geez, Paul, remember that podcast we did? You said Armageddon was coming to tourism. What a load of shite. You were talking nonsense. Never happened." I go, "Jesus, no, fantastic. Thank you. Delighted I was wrong." Yeah. But I'm not wrong, because I haven't been wrong once in the last 5 years since I've been shouting and screaming. Everything I said that was going to happen has happened. And this year, we're seeing it now. Businesses in the middle of the season are going wallop. That's unheard of. We never heard of that before. They're closing down.
They're literally closing down now at peak season.
They're literally closing down. There's 3 businesses that I know of that in a town that I know, won't say where, because obviously nobody's announcing anything, that they're all gone by the end of September, October this year. They've already made the decision. They're gone. And that's just 3 that I know of that came up and talked to me and said, "We can't do this anymore." One of them is in business for over 25 years. And they just went, "It's just not sustainable. So we can't give it to the kids, because they're not going to make any money out of it."
They'll be saddled with debt. Yeah. Jeez.
So that's the shitstorm that we are coming into. That is the absolute carnage. And I hope to God I'm wrong.
I hope so too, but I don't think you are, Paul, and mainly because, as you said, you're a man who's done it himself. You've done it the hard way, and you know what you're talking about. And that, you know, I would trust you a hell of a lot more than I trust the guys who are talking above in the Dáil, and more so those who are parroting them in the media, who are paid to parrot them with their 0% VAT and their cushy jobs as advisors. Afterwards. Paul, it's been an absolute pleasure having you on. Thank you so much for giving us your time this morning, and I think you've given a lot of people a lot to think about, and I hope, you can only hope, that the right people see this and maybe some common sense will kick in.
That's going to be my political slogan when I go for politics in the next election. I'm going to say, "Bring back common sense." Simple.
Now, you're being hyperbolic, but I know you're joking, you're a talker, but would you go for politics?
I was very close in the last election. I had a couple of parties that come to me. Some of them I have no interest, I wouldn't even entertain. But at this stage, I'm kind of saying to myself, well, the only way you can't fix things on the sideline. You've got to be on the pitch. And I don't care who I play for as long as I'm playing. Because you imagine me in the Dáil. Imagine me, I'd be going, "Stop talking shite. You can't say that in the Dáil." And I said, "Can I think it?" And they go, "Yeah, well, I think you're talking shite." Could you imagine me?
You'd be a great candidate, though. You'd be, you know, you'd have a hell of a base down there in Kerry, and you would have, obviously, up in Dublin. You're smart. You've got a business success. That would be, it'd be a hell of a.
I saw in the last election some really good candidates that you know as well that ran and didn't get over the line. My point to a couple of them that I spoke to was, they run again, because you started at 0 and you're 60% of the way there now in the last election. 4 years will be a long way coming around again. And people are seeing that what you said 4 years ago or 5 years ago is still living today. So actually, I'll give you my vote today. So I think people that ran as independents last year, I think they'd have a very good chance But when I saw what went on in Kerry and going, how can I change the mind of a 17-year-old who was voted Fianna Fáil, Fine Gael all their life? The problem's not who was voting. The problem was who wasn't voting. So everyone else sitting at home. So I'd be saying, some guy came up to me, I've never voted, but I'm going to vote for you this time. I'd say, well, get your whole family out, because your one vote, as much as it would be great, I need all of them. I need every single vote you can muster up. Get fellas who never voted in their life out voting again. And when they say, well, who do you vote for? What do you do? You know, who do we put in to change? I don't care. Just change it. Put in the worst shower in the world just to get them out. And then we can change that again when we crack and bring in another government. But they need to know that they're not getting away with this anymore. They need to know that the people are going to, when they come around and kiss babies and beg you for their vote, you need to know, say, well, lads, you actually owe me something for that now. You lied to me. Don't forget their pre-election manifestos and their pre-election promises. As soon as they got into power, all gone. They were cutting VAT. They were given grants. Nothing happened because they got in.
Have you thought about getting divorced and marrying a Healy Ray?
I to myself and Michael. Well, I tell you what, the way the world is going, who knows? Stranger things have happened. I had to go over a rainbow crossing there the other day, so who knows what the hell could happen.
That's your ticket into Kerry politics.
I say my wife would be delighted. Thank God he's gone at last.
All right. Listen, Paul, it's an absolute pleasure. Thank you.
Thanks very much, John. Really appreciate the time.